comes to YouTube videos talking about film, the whole YouTube discourse scene, oftentimes I do feel like we just get stuck a little bit on our criticisms and we don't really spend enough time just being geeky and dorky and excited for something. I am so excited by the new film that came out very recently, Dune 2, directed by Denis Villeneuve. I came away from Dune 2 really feeling like, wow, now that is a movie. Take a chance on Dune 2, even if you don't like sci-fi, even if you didn't like the first film that much, which truthfully, I myself was not the biggest fan of the first film. I thought it was cool, but I didn't really love it. And if you can, go see it in theaters. Don't wait until it's on streaming. It really, I think, is one of the most recently, the best film-going experiences I've had in a long time. It's been a while since I've been able to both enjoy the spectacle and the technical achievements of a film, as well as the story and the characters and the world. It has a long runtime and it does feel long. There was never a scene where I essentially felt like, oh, it should have ended here, this is too much, I don't like this. No, it keeps hitting you with these spectacular sequences where you're just like, wow, that's awesome. And it just keeps going and going. It doesn't really stop. You kind of just keep being wowed throughout the whole film. There is so much passion and genuine creativity being put into this film and the way it's made that if you're passionate about film, this is one to support. Hearing Denis talk about his film, I do think a lot of care was put into it, and I actually appreciate certain things that Denis had changed. For example, how much he changed Chani's character to not just be a lover of Paul, but also really challenge Paul's notion of being the one, and therefore representing a key aspect of the film, which is this critique of colonialism, of having an outsider save a people. And I guess Dune is not without its critiques, because I have seen several people talk about how there is a bit of a superficial influence of Islam in the fictional culture of the Fremen and their religious views.
The movie features white people wearing headscarves and niqab lookalikes, long flowing abayas, clothes, speaking in Farsi and Arabic. They are subjected people. They pray in sun-drenched sands, deeply devout and pious, even in the face of devastation. You're left wondering how a creative team and cast that has entrenched themselves in this world can choose to be so blind to the real-life correlations. And the behind-the-scenes crew include Jordan and Palestinian people, yet it seems no effort was made to otherwise include the very people whose culture the movie is implicitly, unavoidably based on. Parts of our identity are being co-opted by people who have never lifted a finger to defend us, and it seems very few places are giving space for the criticism of the erasure both Dune movies are dependent on.
And I definitely see it. I think there's absolutely no way to watch the Dune films without seeing it. People should talk about it. I'd be interested in seeing more people who are coming from these backgrounds or more educated in these backgrounds talking about it, because I personally, don't know that much about Islamic culture and the Middle Eastern and North African cultures. I don't know that much, so I'm not really the person, I think, to fully go into what it means that Dune is clearly inspired by these cultures without really casting people from those cultures. People will always make the argument that it's fantasy, it doesn't have to be fighting by our rules of culture and stuff like that, which I can see that a little bit, but at the end of the day, I do think it's a bit questionable, and I would be interested in seeing more people talk about it. And I definitely think it's important because in America, even in my experience, growing up in North Carolina in a public school, I had a lot of Christian teachers every day openly talking about how terrible the Quran is, how terrible the people in Islamic countries are, all these things. Islamophobia is a really real thing in America. It's a really big normalized thing that not a lot of people talk about. So I think that watch the film and talk about it, because I think it should be talked about. I guess the only counter to that criticism that I feel like could be said is that the Fremen in the film are not really portrayed in a negative light at all, in my opinion. I think you're supposed to really admire the Fremen and their culture. And I think part of Dune that I was receiving is this anti-colonial idea of it shouldn't be Paul or other societies coming in to fix the Fremen and like save them. That shouldn't be the case, and I do think that speaks a lot to US intervention in these parts of the world. You know, that's kind of what I personally took away from the film. Yeah, I'm open to other people's interpretations. Even with those things in mind, like two things can be true. I think you can see perhaps they could have done better with casting more people from these regions and these cultures if you're gonna like have this superficial fantasy that is deriving from these cultures. But also the technicality, the care, and the feat that Dune has achieved is like pretty amazing. In my opinion so far, I do think it's actually quite nice to see a fantasy culture and society that is not completely deriving from European worlds. Because so much, if you think about like Game of Thrones and just pretty much most of our fantasy and sci-fi that is made really does come from European medieval times and things. Personally, I also really enjoy those as well. Like, I do think that the kings and queens and all that world is really interesting to derive from, and there's a reason why it inspires people. But then it's also really cool to see the Fremen, and obviously it coming from another part of the world, being inspired by another part of the world, and it not being this weird kind of racist looking down on the people of the desert or this or that. So what do you guys think? I'd be very interested, actually. Like I said, I just watched this yesterday. I'm still maybe digesting it a little bit. And I'd be curious to see the different perspectives people have on the film and what it all means. As a filmmaker, as a fan of film, as just a fan in general, I am just so excited by Dune. I'm so excited by what it achieved. And I really hope that we can continue down this route of like just beautiful, genuine, inventive films and media. But I do think Dennis just keeps getting better with his films, and I really appreciate his artistry. Like, obviously, it's not just Dennis, the director, making this, but it's a whole team of people. The team of people put together for Dune 2 must have all been super exemplary and like amazing at what they do. The world building, the design of all the technology and the weapons, the design of the different societies is so effective. It is really amazing. I don't really see how like anyone could come away with it without being wowed just a little bit. So that is my gamble. Like, I'm double dog daring you, dude. Double dog daring you to go see Dune 2, okay? If you haven't really checked out my channel, it's rather new. I've been trying to build it for a while, and check out some of my other videos. I could do some more hard-hitting opinion pieces, and then I also do quite a lot of memes, silly, funny, like joking pieces. And most of them are about film in general, so yeah.
Please like and subscribe.